But you correctly say that while the public service is there to implement government policy, that has to be balanced against having the guts and the independence to tell government that what they're proposing is stupid. That's not happening. Clearly not happening, Peter.
Not enough. And, I can remember being in rooms with secretaries and ministers where precisely those sorts of conversations were held. And it was on the point, well, Minister, if you're silly enough to want to do this, but usually smart ministers would know that, they should listen to their secretaries. And I just don't see that happening right now. It's the era of public service responsiveness. And what we need to get back to is the era of public service quality advice. And the trick is, how do you get ministers to want that? Because they need that for their own survival. Yeah. But too often what we're getting is ministers who just want to wing it. And sadly, Robodebt is an example.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you say of today, Peter Jennings has said of today, and I quote, "The problem is more an emerging coalition." You've got to think about this when you're talking about the headlines about Robo-debt and all the rest of it. He talks about an emerging coalition of mediocrity, an axis of the average between media, obsessed ministers, controlling, this is a good point, controlling but clueless staff members. I mean, when you look at this business about Brittany Higgins, how could these people give sensible advice on anything? They've got no public service experience. They've got no life experience. So Peter talks about clueless staff members, and public servants, he says, more eager to please than to state difficult truths. He says this is Peter Jennings writing this, Peter Jennings, the Royal Commission report does not expose a monstrous conspiracy so much as a collection of lazy platitudes, sleepy implementation and half-covered trails. Well, Peter, we have to be indebted to Holmes for highlighting the hopelessness of government and its advisors, but we saw that during coronavirus. I mean, you allude to the final chapter in the Holmes report, pointing to, quote, repeated failures by members of the Australian Public Service to discharge their professional obligations and to adhere to the values and standards that apply to their roles. Now, Peter, surely this highlights, and our viewers should know it, there is a completely broken system. Who's going to fix it?
Gosh, well, you'd hope that voters will ultimately, but of course they can only pick on the rather limited choices that they've got in front of them. We need a politician of the calibre of a John Howard. I worked directly for Howard in his office for a number of years. What I admired about him was the calm, deliberative way that he went about making policy. Yeah, he made mistakes too, but he knew how to run his cabinet. He had high expectations of ministers. And high expectations of public servants. Since that time, Alan, I've recently finished being the head of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. I ran that outfit for 10 years. During that time, I had 7 defence ministers and, God knows how many junior ministers. And so we've seen a very quick turnover of ministers, which I think has been part of the problem. Governments being circulated in and out of office very, very quickly. The whole system, I think, now is in need of a sort of a period of calm reflection about how we do this better. And you kind of hope that a new government would deliver it, but I have to say I see no indications that
None whatever.
The Albanese government is providing that.
None whatever. And the arrogance of Bowen is a metaphor of that.